Ever since I was a little bitty guy, probably littler than my little guy down there right now, I've had a tendency to make everything harder than it has to be. People have told me continuously through my adult life, Jesse, you're just really overthinking it. So I'm not sure if I'm doing what I've been doing lately because I'm just getting older or I'm getting more reflective or at surface level, there's so much to learn from the Bible, and eventually you start peeling things back and you find a little more in there. And I associate, as you know, with several of the Bible characters because there's just things in my life that they have that I need, you know. And so the text that we selected tonight, I mean, that's Moses, that's Abraham, that's David. And for those of you who have teenage or middle school age kids, that Hebrews 11 thing, right, is what they're doing downstairs right now, kind of these greats of faith, as it were. So these are stories that we're very familiar with. But I started thinking about it again, maybe more than just at the surface level, trying to kind of dial it back. So I'm going to start with kind of an example just in life that we might all be familiar with and look at a few of those things too. But many people seek to emulate those who have had success in their field. You know, people write finance books or business books or, self-help books, all kinds of things. People that have done well, they have something to say about that subject. People are interested because they want to improve their life. And interestingly, when someone sees this person over here and they ask them, they say, well, where do I start? Unless you think I'm making this up. From my own library at home, which is kind of big, but not as big as a lot of libraries, I have a book that says, well, you start with why, right? You want to start with why. This guy right here, sometimes they're like, well, okay, yeah, I want to start, but where do I start? Well, he says, start where you are. Well, that's profound, right? You can't get there from here, but start where you are. And this guy, he doesn't really care at all as long as you'll put, rubber to the road and actually start. So somewhere within all this and the questions that we ask about these things, this concept of starting comes up. So when we look at these Abrahams and Moseses and Davids, right, the greats of faith and so forth, where'd they start? Because I can see where they are. I can see that David was in an encounter with Goliath, and you think, boy, God going to have me face a Goliath? Well, probably not physically, right? But the question that I'm asking you is, well, did David start with Goliath, right? So I think we should probably ask this, same kind of concept about starting with our religion, okay? And I think it's because these great stories, especially these like we would come across in Hebrews 11 and other places like that, they're there to illustrate to us the fullness of our potential with God's help. Okay, the fullness of the potential of our faith, our courage, leadership, love, you name it. The fullness of it is in there somewhere, even if it's just in Christ himself, but it is in there. So these three individuals I've selected for tonight, if we have time. If not, maybe we'll just get two, but we'll try. Okay? So there's David. The text for tonight came out of 1 Samuel 16. The one that I wanted to pull you to look at, though, to get some explanation to the background here about where did David start, will come out of 1 Samuel 17. But you think about it, he's facing Goliath, and the first thing, and I want to put an asterisk on this, that Saul says to him is, you are but a youth. Okay, so we have a youth tonight, so that's going to pertain to somebody in here. When we get to Abraham, he was 75 when he left home. We go to Moses, he was 80 when he went back to Egypt. So I want to make that clear too. You can be 80 and still start something. You can be 8 and still start something. So don't let the age question enter into it. But I mean, usually, yes, when you think of David, a couple big things come to mind. Like there's Bathsheba and there's Goliath, right? I mean, there's a lot to David. There's a lot in there. But usually those are the two things that kind of pop to the top of my head when we think about David. But where did he get this courage that he faced Goliath with? Over in the 1 Samuel 17, and I'd like to take you down to verse 33 to start, I guess. So David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And here's Saul again. You're not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And when there came a lion or a bear and took a lamb out of the flock, I went after him and struck him and delivered him out of his mouth. And if he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them. Okay, so I'm not ready to fight a Goliath. I'm not too sure that I'm ready to fight a lion or a bear either. This still takes an intense amount of courage. And there's been stories in the news of people attacked out on hiking trips in the wild, attacked by these mountain lions and like literally had to choke them out or, die trying. So it happens that these kind of encounters happen quite literally in life. But I thought about, David was when the text that we read, when Samuel went down to Jesse's house, he had his 7 sons passed before him. And Samuel's like, yeah, this is the guy. And God's like, no, it's not. And so he ran out of sons. And so Samuel's like, hey, Jesse, you got any more kids around here? Somebody might even ask me that question. Many of them's running around my house. And he says, well, yeah, there's the little guy, but he's out there with the sheep. And I thought, he's grown up in this house. He's the little guy. That's why he's with the sheep. Okay, because the other guys have moved on to other things. The sheep job, that's the job for the little guy. Killing lions and killing bears, that's the job for the little guy. Okay? And so it had to be the case. Even when David shows up at the battle line where Goliath is, his older brother is picking on him. Oh, I know the naughtiness of your heart. You're just down here to spy out the battle. So here's that brotherly back and forth. 7 sons in a row. At some time, they're all sitting around and they're telling their glory stories about what they did out there in the pasture. So David has heard this stuff. So you know what that means? He knows the risks. He knows what's out there. He knows there's lions out there. Why would you need the shepherd? He knows there's bears out there. Why would you need the shepherd? So he knew the risks, and he knew the job was coming to him, and duty demanded that he do what? Take the field. David's first act of courage? Taking the field, being present, going out there to the pasture where the danger was. That's the first act of courage. Might not be a lion out there. Might not be a bear out there. But there was his first act of courage. Mustering the will to go out there where the danger was. So, think about it this way. In sports, do you start at the national championship? Do you start at the state championship? No. Where do you start? Where's your first act of courage? Going to the tryouts. Right? That's where the first act of courage is. Well, we can do it like this. It's not the job that you're going for. It's not the interview itself. What's the first step? Filling out the application. And going through your head, do I really want this? Are they really going to want me? But there's the first act. We recently had a celebration of a 50th anniversary. Is that where it started? No. Did it start at the wedding? No. Did it even start at the proposal? No. Where was the first act of courage? Maybe asking her out or asking him out, whichever way that went. It was neat with my grandparents. It was both ways. They both friends were in on it and how that worked out. So that was a big celebration at their 50th. But you see my point. You make those big milestones. You have those big landmarks, those big accomplishments and those things. But the first act of courage is just, to ask the person out, to take that first step. So that's David. Abraham's faith didn't begin with sacrificing Isaac. And for a lot of the critics of God, they like to go to that one, What kind of God would ask a man, to kill his son? And I thought they're really missing the point in the relationship with God here. So what was his first act? Well, it wasn't sacrificing Isaac. And it really wasn't even having Isaac and the miracle of that at an old age, right? It was 90 going on 100, right? It wasn't even that. It was leaving home to go see an unknown land. I think, that I can handle. But there were probably lions and bears out there too, and a bunch of heathen, because it says the Canaanites were in the land. That's what it says. But that was his first act of faith and courage and trust in God. Moses' leadership, and boy, he's a unique one, because, he was actually a Hebrew. He was born in Egypt, and he traded hands over from his mom over to the Egyptians, and then he went out to Midian, and he came back to Egypt, and he went back out to Midian. You cannot pin Moses down. And it's like, well, how do you trace him back to the first step? He didn't start with Pharaoh, let my people go. I do know that. He didn't even start with the two brethren that were fighting among themselves when he came to be a judge between them. Where did Moses start? He started with himself. Moses did. Do you know that? You can get it out of the Hebrews 11 section on Moses. You can get it out of the Acts 7 section about Moses. But Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, and chose rather to suffer the affliction, right, than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. That's a summary of the Hebrews 11 portion there, I think around verse 24 and 25. But he started with himself. That's probably a good place for me to start, right, me personally. Because I've kind of realized, again, just looking for origins and the things that he had to do, and I thought, for me, I better not be looking on the outside necessarily till I get done looking on the inside. So maybe that's true for you too. Because we're not going to start with a Pharaoh or a Goliath either, right? But I have to ask the question, have you even taken the first step? And you're like, well, Jesse, now you're scaring me because you're showing me that these steps get bigger and harder and more challenging as I go. And you're right, but you see, God gave these people the strength to rise to those occasions and to meet those demands also. But you're not answering the question what life is going to be like without God. What about Ahab's life, just to throw one out there? Like you see, he was without God and progressively without God. I don't think that made his life easier, right? So there's that challenge. But the first step is there, right? And it's still a big step. I decided one time, people talk about baby steps, taking baby steps. For a baby step is still one full, whole, complete step. I came up with a concept called the half step. I haven't written the book yet, but I kind of got sort of an outline. But the idea is if you're walking through the dark in an unfamiliar place, maybe you can do it at home and get by with it. But, you kind of put the one foot just halfway out because you don't want to stub your toe on anything. It's sort of like a half step. It's safe. Right? You're not going to fall over the edge. You're not going to kick your toe against anything. So a half step, but it's still progress, okay? It's still progress. You're still getting somewhere. Take the first step. So it takes courage. It takes faith to come forward, to confess that you have error, to repent of it. It takes courage and it takes faith to crucify the flesh. It takes faith and courage to put on Christ. To walk in the Spirit, to walk in the light, to run the race, to fight the fight, to be faithful unto death, no matter what your age is. So tonight, I just really want to encourage you to start something. If you haven't started your journey yet on the path to heaven, I certainly encourage you to do that. But if you're scared of stubbing your toe in the dark, if you're out there on the field, you left the field and you need to get back to the field and the things that need to be done there, I would encourage you to handle that tonight. I think it will give you a lot of peace of mind, peace in your heart, and a lot of joy in heaven. So whatever you might have need of, please come while we stand, while we sing.